Listen, I always try to tell a funny story when I start, and that way everybody laughs, and I know you're awake when I start. And if you go to sleep, I know that that's my fault. And so I'd like to tell you about the New York lawyer who went down into North Carolina, duck hunting. And so he went down there and he shot this duck, and it flew over the fence into this farmer's field. So he set his shotgun down and he started climbing a fence, and that farmer shut his tractor off and he says, "What do you think you're doing?" He says, "I shot a duck and it landed over here and I'm going over to get my duck." That farmer says, "Oh, no, you're not. This is my field and that's my duck and you can't have him." And that lawyer's hackles come up and he says, "Look, I'm the best litigation lawyer in New York. You don't give me that duck, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take your farm, I'm going to take your tractor, I'm going to take your red shirt and your bib overalls." And that farmer says, "Look, we don't go to court over every little thing down here in North Carolina. We use the NC 3-kick rule." The lawyer says, "What's an NC 3-kick rule?" And he said, "Well, I kick you 3 times and you kick me 3 times and we go back and forth till one of us gives up." So that lawyer looked at that old farmer and he thought, "I can take this guy." So he said, "Okay." So the farmer climbs down off his tractor and comes over there and does a drop kick right in his groin. And he grabs his stomach and goes down on his knees and he's groaning, and the next kick just nearly takes his nose off and blood's flying everywhere. And he falls over on his face. That farmer jumps back and plants both boots right in his kidneys. He's just groaning and twisting on the ground, and he almost gave up. But he finally drug himself up on one knee and he says, "All right, you old redneck, now it's my turn." That farmer says, "Oh, no, it's not. I give up. You can have the duck." No, I'm not going to let you have your turn. I quit. I tell you what I come here today to do. I want to. How many likes to lose? Anybody here like to be a loser? How many likes to win?
There you go.
I tell you what I'm going to do today. I'm going to share some very important information with you, because I'm going to teach you how to fight with your spouse and win every time.
All right.
Awesome.
Every time. It's a guarantee.
Somebody
You follow the things I tell you to do, you will win every time. So I'm gonna speak a little bit about God's order for marriage, but I got a few things I want to. This is a man's thing. So if I was preaching in a church, I probably wouldn't read. Not that that's bad, but and I will tell you, 2 weeks ago, my wife and I celebrated our 56th wedding anniversary. 56 years. Somebody asked me, "How in the world do you stay married 56 years?" And I said, "Well, when we first got married, my wife and I made an agreement. If we ever got in a fight, she'd go in the kitchen and I'd go outside. And this outdoor living's been good to me." No, we went on a cruise a couple of years ago, and they asked, we had one of those big things down in the theater, and they said, who's been married the longest? Well, it was like 51 years. It's been, 53 years. And so they called me up and we did like a newlyweds game, only it was married people. And my wife and I won, actually, because we knew how each other think and everything. But they said, how do you stay married for 53 years? And I said, "Well, you got to do 3 things. First of all, if you want to be a king, you have to treat your wife like a queen." And I want to urge you guys today. I know that we're kind of macho, and we should be. And we all have our man caves, and we got man things to do. But if you want to be a king, and you want to stay married 56 years, you have to treat your wife like a queen. The second thing is, never be unfaithful. You made wedding vows to God and your wife. And the third thing is that if they say when you start to get old, you forget. There's 3 things. I forgot what that last one was. No, the third thing is you have to give JBs. How many knows what a JB is? Okay, you're going to learn something here. A JB is a just because. Because women expect candy, they expect cards on their birthday and their anniversary. But you know what? A JB is you just bring them flowers or you do something for no special reason. Like this started out, I tell a story about the guy had his head down on his desk at work, and he was crying, and his boss come in and says, "What's the matter?" And he says, he said, "My marriage is all messed up. I think my wife's leaving me, and my life is just all messed up." And he says, his boss told him, "I tell you what you do. You take the rest of the day off. It's 2 o'clock. So you go down by a flower shop and get a dozen roses, and you take them back to your wife." So he did. He took off, he got a dozen roses, and he rang the doorbell, and his wife come to the door. Her hair was all messed up, and she had an apron. She was holding the kid in her arms, and she burst into tears. And he says, "What's the matter, honey? What's the matter?" And she says, "Oh, Johnny fell off his bicycle this morning and broke his arm, and the commode backed up, and I had to have the plumber come out and fix that. Then the washing machine started leaking, and I had to have the guy repairman come and fix that. And now you come home drunk." So if you ever haven't done it, JB, you better ease into it a little bit easy, because. But I will tell you, if you treat your wife with respect, and I'm going to share some things with you. It's very critical, but this is kind of comical. The man rules. At last, a guy has taken the time to write all this down. Finally, the guy's side of the story. We always hear the rules from the female side. Now, here's the rules from the male side. These are our rules. Please note, they're all numbered 1. Number 1, men are not mind readers. Number 1, learn to work the toilet seat. You're a big girl. If it's up, put it down. You need it up, you need it down. You don't hear us complaining about you leaving it down. Sunday sports, it's like a full moon or the changing of the tides. Let it be. Crying is blackmail. Number 1, ask for what you want. Let us be clear on this one. Subtle hints do not work. Strong hints do not work. Obvious hints do not work. Just say it. Yes and no are perfectly acceptable answers to almost every question. Come to us with a probably only if you want help solving it. That's what we do. Sympathy is what your girlfriends are for. Anything we said 6 months ago is inadmissible in an argument. In fact, all comments become null and void after 7 days. If you think you're fat, you probably are. Don't ask us. Something we said can be interpreted 2 ways, and one of the ways makes you sad or angry. We meant the other one. You can either ask us to do something or tell us how you want it done, but not both. If you already know how best to do it yourself. Christopher Columbus did not need directions, neither do we.
Oh my goodness.
All men see in only 16 colors, like Windows default settings. Peach, for example, is a fruit, not a color. Pumpkin is also a fruit. We have no idea what mauve is. If it itches, it will be scratched. We knew that. If we ask you what is wrong and you say nothing, we will act like nothing's wrong. We know you're lying, but it's just not worth the hassle. If you ask a question you don't want an answer to, expect an answer you don't want to hear. When we have to go somewhere, absolutely anything you wear is fine. And don't ask us what we're thinking unless you're prepared to discuss topics such as rugby league or cricket. Number 1, you have enough clothes. Number 1, you have too many shoes. Number 1, I am in shape. Round is a shape. Thank you for reading this. Yes, I know, I have to sleep on the couch tonight. Did you know men really don't mind that? It's like camping. Then I got another one on words women use. And I'll get into this right in a minute.
Oh, it's all right.
These are things I'm just trying to help you out. You got to learn the language. Communication is the most important thing in your marriage. To be able to communicate. Words women use. Number 1, fine. This is a word women use to end an argument when they're right and you need to shut up. 5 minutes. If she's getting dressed, this means a half hour. 5 minutes is only 5 minutes if you've just been given 5 more minutes to watch the game before helping around the house. Nothing. This is the calm before the storm. This means something, and you should be on your toes. Arguments that begin with nothing usually end in fine. Go ahead. This is a dare, not permission. Don't do it. Loud sigh. This is actually a word, but is a nonverbal statement often misunderstood by men. A loud sigh means she thinks you're an idiot and wonders why she's wasting her time standing here and arguing with you about nothing. Refer back to number 3 for the meaning of nothing. That's okay. This is one of the most dangerous statements a woman can make to a man. That's okay means he wants to think long and hard before deciding how and when you'll pay for your mistake. Thanks. A woman is thanking you. Do not question or faint. Just say you're welcome. I want to add in a clause here. This is true unless she says, thanks a lot. That is pure sarcasm. She's not thanking you at all. Do not say you're welcome. That will bring on a whatever. When a woman says whatever, that's her way of saying thank you. She says, don't worry about it, I got it. That's another dangerous statement, meaning this is something that a woman has told a man to do several times, but is now doing it herself. This will later result in a man asking, what's wrong? For the woman's response, refer to number 3, nothing. So anyway, you've been forewarned. I'm going to read a scripture out of 1 Peter. God, how many knows that God has a divine order for everything?
That's right. Amen.
God has a divine order, and when we're in that divine order, I tell you what, God's blessings can come. When we get out of that divine order, it's really a mess. So I'm going to read maybe the first 7 verses here of 1 Peter 3. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also without the word may be won by the conversation of the wives. While they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. Whose adorning, let it not be that outward adorning or plaiting of the hair, or wearing of gold, or putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, and that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. For after this manner in the old time, the holy women also who trusted in God adorned themselves, being in subjection to their own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Adam, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. Father in heaven, we come before you today, and I ask that you'd anoint me with the coal from off the altar, and that I would be able to bring the words that you've given me for these men here today. God, I pray that you'd bless every man in attendance, that as you'd anoint our ears to hear and our hearts to understand your word, that we would glean the things that will make strong marriages, which will make strong families, which will make strong churches, which will make a strong America. And help us to step up to the plate and do the things that we want to do in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, if you want to know here, it says that your prayers be not hindered. How many wants God to answer your prayers? You know what? If we don't honor our wives, he says your prayers are going to be hindered. God's not going to answer your prayers. If you want to read Malachi, the 3rd chapter, I'm not going to take time to get into that today, but I will tell you that talking about your wife of your youth, and that we have to be very careful to honor her and not dishonor her. Well, there's only 2 kinds of marriages. How many's married here today? All right, that's most of us. Danny, you probably been married for 14 years. There's only 2 kinds of marriages. Those that have problems and those that lie about it. And everybody has problems. It's not whether you have problems or not, it's how you resolve the problem. That's a key thing. And so, when I was pastoring in Santa Maria, and I want to thank Pastor Ed for inviting me to come today. And Ed held me revivals. He's a great evangelist. I appreciate very much the invitation to come today. But some woman told me when I was counseling, Pastor, I thought marriage was made in heaven. I says, they are, but so is thunder and lightning. You know, and so you just got to, in fact, I'm going to tell you before I forget about it, there's only two ways to handle a woman. Oh, did you see all those buck's ears go up out there? There's only two ways to handle a woman, and nobody knows either one of them. So you have to learn by experience. In fact, when you have a wedding, 56 years ago, my wife and I were united in marriage. And at a wedding, two people become one. And then you go on a honeymoon to find out which one. Sometimes it's a surprise. But I want to tell you, God has a divine order for marriage. And that divine order started in the Garden of Eden. God says in his word that he put Adam to sleep and made him a deep sleep, and he took a rib out of his side and made Eve. And, you know, I always tell people that God didn't take part of Adam's skull to make Eve so that she would be the head of him. She didn't take his big toe to make Eve so that she would be under his feet. He took a rib so that she would be beside him. And if you want to look at and I have a thing that's on an overhead. I didn't think we'd have one overhead out here today, so I didn't bring it. But I teach in this, there's a triangle like this. And I read scriptures of wives be in subjection to your husbands. In Ephesians 5, it says also, wives, obey your husbands. But submit yourselves to your husbands, is what it says in Ephesians 5. But right above that, it says, submitting yourselves one to another. So the first verse that comes, we submit one to another. And there has to be one person that makes a final decision. I will tell you, after 56 years ago, I learned many years ago that God will withhold things from me and reveal them to my wife just to keep my hat size the right size. Because I tell you what, they have women's intuition that's very valuable if you learn to tap into that and learn how to let, because God will show them things that will help us. And yes, a man may be the head, but you know who the neck is? That's a wife. Who turns the head? The neck does. So when you have to announce, let me tell you, if you have to announce, I'm the head of this house, you've lost it already. That position is earned by respect. And I in the Garden of Eden, God made Eve and brought him, and it was a beautiful thing. God, the original plan involved two people before sin entered. And I want to tell you that in the Garden of Eden, Adam always opened the car door for Eve. Somebody said, wow, they didn't have cars in the Garden of Eden. No, but if they had them, Adam would have opened the car door. He honored his wife. They had communion with God. They walked in the cool of the day together, and they had, everything was really great. And then disobedience and sin came in. And you know what happened? They both turned 180 degrees. And dominion turned into domination. Ever since sin came in, the things have really gone awry, and it's caused problems. And I would just like to encourage you. Now, what happens? Somebody says, "Oh, I fell in love." You know what? I fell about a month ago. I got out of my car, and there was a step down off the driveway about that far, and I started to turn, and all of a sudden I realized I was falling. And if I'd have just let myself fall, I would have fell in the dirt. But instead I stuck out my leg and tried to stop myself, and it just kind of propelled me over, and I went all the way and fell on the driveway and skidded my car keys, and I skinned all the skin almost right down to the bone on these knuckles. And falling is a bad thing. You know, somebody say, well, I fell in love. Falling in love usually lasts about 2 years. You fall out of love. That's why so many people today, down in Hollywood, they don't say so long as we both shall live. They say so long as we both shall love. God, you make a commitment to God, and to your spouse. So when you make those vows, they're important to God. It's very, very critical. their attitudes towards each other changed. Neither one has understood the other one. As long as you're in the flesh, what happened when sin came in? Because the gifts of the Spirit was involved. Can you imagine Adam and Eve as they was walking along in the cool of the day with God, and Adam said, "Oh, why don't you just shape up?" And Eve said, "Oh, why don't you just shut up?" And blah, 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 blah. Can you imagine that happened with God walking along then? No, I can't. But did you know what? It's kind of funny. God hears everything that happens between you and your spouse. God knows that when you have an argument on the way to church, and you're really getting a little heated around the collar, and she is too, and then you get at church and you put that facade on and you get out and you smile and go, "God bless you, God bless you." You know, God knows what you're doing inside. But you know what? One can put 1,000 to flight, two can put 10,000 to flight. The devil don't want you to be at one with your wife, because when you have communications and you have everything's going the way it should be, then things are really, really good. I'm not going to read it. You ought to read the second chapter of Malachi. I'm not going to take time to do that today. How many will give me another 10 minutes? Okay, 10, 20, 30, 70. I think I can get done in that many time. In fact, I will read one scripture. Malachi 2:16. For the Lord God of Israel saith that he hateth putting away, for one covereth violence with his garment, saith the Lord. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that you deal not treacherously with the wife of your youth. You have to, man, I want to encourage you to honor. And you know, I advise people to be how many belongs to AAA? I'm a AAA member. But if you would be a AAA father and a AAA spouse, there's three things that every human being needs. Every human being needs three things, and they're AAA. Number one is affirmation. Affirmation. We all need to be affirmed that, hey, your wife needs to know that she's number one with you. And don't like one guy said, you know, when I got married to you 40 years ago, I told you I loved you, and if I ever change my mind, I'll let you know. No, you need to tell your wife you love her every day. And you not only need to say it with your mouth, you need to do it with actions. You need to give JBs. You need to encourage her. I tell you what, the best thing that you can do for your marriage is it doesn't cost you a lot. I have a little yellow sticky pad, about like that. When I get up in the morning, I usually get up at 5:30 or 6. I go out and clean the pool and water the flowers, and I go out and run 2 miles. I come back, I cook an egg and put it on a piece of bread and drink a cup of coffee. And I go in there and I comb my hair and I get ready for work, and I leave a little sticky note on there. Morning, babe. I wanted to let you know I love you today, and I'm be thinking about you today. And I write a little, you know, some people think, oh, yeah, no, that's sissy stuff. No, you know what? If you encourage your wife like that, it pays off in results. I will tell you. We're not born. Somebody said, well, you do what comes naturally. Oh, no. Did you know it's really sad that 50% of marriages end up in divorce? And you know what's really, really sad? That's true in the Christian realm, too. Christian people end up 50% in divorce. And that's because people don't get along and people don't have communications. And I can tell you that it's really, what we have to do is reestablish the fruits of the Spirit. I'm gonna share with you. Oh, the second thing, affirmation, attention. You know what? If you don't pay attention to your wife and show her attention, somebody else will come along and show attention. Right. And that's where a lot of marriages go wrong. We get involved with a job, and for years I was a company man. I worked one week. I worked 80 hours in the week, and I went home at noon on Saturday. And I used to go home and lay across the bed and get up and not even change clothes. Get up in the morning. Sometimes my car was still warm from the night before. I was a workaholic, and probably a lot of times I should have been spending more time with my family. And I had a godly wife, and she stuck through me, and I tell you, she's been a blessing. She has been a blessing to me. So, at any rate, the third thing is affection. I'm not talking about sex. You know, the number one, how many was at the couples retreat over in Pismo Beach? Yeah, and of course, we learned what the women's needs are, and everybody knows what the man's needs are. I mean, I went to a wedding down in Lodi somewhere about a year ago, and the best man got up and he said, "Well, I want to tell you, there's a girl here that's just really, this bride, I mean, she gives Joy everything that nobody else would give him." "Oh, not that," he said. But we all know what man's number one need is. And you know, we're made that way. We're made like a microwave. We can see something and it sets us off just like that. But you know what? A woman's different like that. She doesn't get turned on as a microwave. If you want to make love, you need to start in the kitchen in the morning, or start with a little sticky note or something that you let her know you're thinking about. I text my wife, not every day, but almost every day. I text my wife and I want to say, "Sweetheart, I was thinking about you today." And then she texts me back. You know, those little things let her know. When you just show up at night from work, you go in there and take a shower, and then you say, "All right," you know, a woman doesn't turn on like that. I want to tell you, that's you will not have a good relationship. But when you do things right, but there should be times when you give affection. That's when you're not expecting anything in return. Hold her hand, walking in a mall, put your arm around her. I like to give my wife hugs. I like to I have to bend over because she's shorter than I am. You know, affection is something that a woman really needs. That's part of her needs. And security and those things. So affirmation, attention, and affection. And so I'm going to get down here now. I'm also going to give you the 5 priorities. Because, you know, most of the time when our marriages get in trouble, it's because we've got our priorities messed up. So I'm going to tell you what your 5 priorities are. Number 1 priority is your soul salvation. If you don't put God and your salvation first, that has to be the very first thing, because nothing else matters after this. Your second priority is your marriage. Your marriage. Your third priority is your children, if there is any. You need to pay attention to your kids. Your fourth priority is your church. Your church is your fourth priority. Your fifth priority is your job. I, many years, my job was my first priority. There was a time for 6 months that I worked 2 40-hour-a-week jobs and went to school 2 nights a week. That was a rough time. I just almost never seen my kids. My kids asked my wife, "Who's that man that eats breakfast with us?" That's a bad thing to do. You have to. So your priorities, your soul salvation, your marriage, your kids, your church, and your job. If you keep those priorities right, you're going to do good. And I'm going to. Went too far here. Well, here it is. Back in the first. Now I'm going to share with you, and first then I'm going to say that there's 5 words in the King James Version of the Bible, that the Greek words for love. It's translated love. Greek is much more expressive. First of all, the first word in the Bible that's love is Philadelphia love. The Greek word, and that means brotherly love, like David and Jonathan had. I'm not talking about Adam and Steve. It was Adam and Eve, by the way. But I'm talking about brotherly love for our Christian brothers. We have love for them. There's people that have best friends. And I will tell you, your best friend should be your wife.
That's right.
And mine is. But you also have special friends that's important. The second word for love is phileo love. The Greek word, and you know, I'm not a Greek scholar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right. I don't know if Pastor Ed knows if I am or not. But anyway, phileo love is a kind of a romantic love that you have with your wife. You leave a little note, you hold hands, you go on walks, and you do things. That's phileo love. And then there's the word eros, and that describes the physical act of sex. Eros. We get our word erotica from that. And then there's a word that's 3. 4. There's pharmacia, and that no pharmacia. That's another Greek word. You know what? I didn't write these down. We get our word, pornea, not pharmacy, it's pornea. We get our word pornographic from that, and that has to do with illicit love, pornography, and I will tell you that that's the biggest detriment to marriages today is pornography. Because I tell you what, it's relentless. It'll get a hold of you. It will destroy your marriage quicker than anything, because what you see on that screen in pornography is not attainable in the real world. And it'll get a hold of you. It's a spirit that'll get a hold of you and grip you. It'll ruin you. You become addicted to that, and it's going to mess up your life. It is going to mess up your life. You will lose your marriage if you mess around in pornography. But I will tell you that not only Christian men, but I will tell you there's probably, and I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard there's 25% of pastors that are involved in pornography. And that's a terrible thing. That is a terrible, pornea is that. And then the last one is agape. That's the one in John 3:16 where it says that God so loved the world that he gave. And agape is a love that says, I'm going to give, and I never expect anything in return. I will tell you, if you're married, you will experience a phileo love, a romantic relationship with your wife. If you're married, you will be involved in eros. That's the physical act of love. But if you don't have agape love, the problem is agape love is one that says, I love you if I never get anything in return. If you're having problems in your marriage, I want to encourage you today that you start exercising agape love towards your spouse. Yeah, you probably have had some things. Like I said, every marriage has problems. Those that don't have problems are the ones that lie about it. But when you have problems and you start getting this headbutting situation, you're not going to, you have, and I advise men that are in this situation that, you know what, you need to be treating your wife with respect, do things, and I have a little card that I carry around in my wallet. I put it in my shirt pocket so I wouldn't lose it. I don't know where it's at. I got a little thing like this, and probably, Ed, I'll probably email you or give you a copy of this, but it's 12 things to keep luster in your marriage. I carry this in my wallet, and I take out and look at it every once in a while. Number 1, give compliments and praise. Don't hesitate to compliment your wife and tell her, hey, that's a nice looking dress you're wearing. You look nice today. She goes to the hairdresser, tell her, hey, your hair looks nice. And 2, assume blame for petty things. If you're out there saying, well, that's your fault, no, it's your fault, blah, blah, blah. Hey, take the blame for petty things. Don't hassle about it, because that'll just mess up your marriage. 3, never stop courting. You know what I tell young girls when they come to me for marital counseling? I tell them, you know what? You better take a look at how things are right now, because that's as good as it's going to get. And I hate to say that, but man, it's true. When you're courting, you bring the candy and the flowers, you open the door for them, you do all those things. And you know what? We're like hunter-gatherers, I guess. And that's where the natural man just kind of messes up, because if you do it naturally, you're going to mess up. But when you get married, you think, oh, well, it's like deer hunting, you know. I went out and, hey, I got an 8-point buck, you know, and now it's all over with. No. Your marriage is just starting. So I tell them young girls, you know what? You're not going to marry a man and fix him. They're as good as they're going to get right now. If you don't like the way it is right now, you better not get married. That's why I say never stop courting. You should always court your wife. We bring the candy and towers and flamby. I told somebody I had to give up alcohol because I get into alcoholics and alcohol, and I don't care what think will peep of me. At any rate, we bring the candy and flowers when we're courting, and then they never hear from us again. That's why the woman thought her husband come home drunk when he brought the dozen roses to her. Number 4, spend time alone together. Make time for a date night. Make time that's just for you. My wife and I went away on vacation week before last. We went over at Pismo, and we were just there. Now my wife says, well, do you want to go do this? And no, we're on our 56th wedding anniversary trip. I took vacation. I'm going to spend time with you. You need to make a date night. If you don't have, how many has a date night with your wife? You know what? You men that didn't raise your hand, you need to make it a purpose in your heart that one night a week You say, honey, I want a date. I want to take you out. We're going to go out. And you know what my daughter in Santa Maria does? My oldest daughter, they've had to cut back at the state prison system. They've cut the hours. They've cut everything. You know, sometimes when they don't have money, they go to Costco and get a hot dog at Costco. You can get it for $1.50 for the drink. For $3, sometimes they have Costco date nights. But when they have money, they'll go to Applebee's or they'll go someplace. You need to make a date night with your wife. And I tell you what, she will really appreciate you, and that will draw you close together when you do that. Number 5, learn to give little gifts. You better give some good gifts at Christmas time and anniversary time. In fact, one woman said, you know, my husband never remembers my anniversary. And her friend said, well, my husband used to be like that, but he never forgets my anniversary now. And she says, well, how'd you fix that? She said, well, I come home one day, the day after my anniversary, and I told him, I said, look at the diamond earring you got for my anniversary, babe. He never forgot her anniversary after that again. In fact, this woman, her husband died, and she after she died, she got her inheritance. It was like $30,000 or something. And she told her friend about 2 months later, she said, I'm flat broke. I'm flat broke. And she said, well, what happened to the money your husband left? Well, she said, I had to pay for the funeral. That was about $8,000 or $9,000. I had to pay for all the food for the people that come to, and then I had the memorial stone. And she said, how much was the memorial stone? She says, it was $30,000. She says, for a memorial stone? How big was it? She says, it was about 4 carats. Number 6, make affection and sex interesting. You know what? They say that variety is the spice of life. If you're saying that to justify an affair, shame on you. But you know what? You need to be something different. You need to do some different things. Surprise your wife. Leave a little gift somewhere where she'll find it. Leave a little note somewhere. You know, but make affection and sex interesting. Number 7, be courteous. Never criticize your wife in front of other people. Shame on you if you do that. That's a sure thing that's going to mess your marriage up. Praise her. Praise her. In fact, she may turn red-faced, but when you're in other people's company, brag on her. Say, hey, man, my wife really, she's a good cook. She does this. Praise her in front of other people. May make her face red, but I'll tell you what, that will really help. Do small things for each other. My wife told me today, because I got up and not one today because she was still in bed and asleep when I left this morning. But yesterday I got up for work, and she had woke up, she had a bad night, and she went in and she was doing her devotions. So I got ready and I shaved, and I got my shirt and tie on, and I got ready to go, and I went over and I made the bed. And she told me when I got home that night, she says, thank you for making the bed this morning. You know, it doesn't hurt us to do little things like that to show her that you care or you're thinking about her. So do small things. Show affection for each other. And here's one that's really important. Pray for each other. You know, the best thing you can do is let your wife hear you praying for her. And you should pray together. You should do that. When she hears you praying for her, that's one of the things that establishes you as the head of the home. That's your responsibility. And you don't have to, you know, sometimes we get messed up, and especially if you're a parent of a teenager, your brains leak out of your ear onto the pillow. And you end up telling your teenager, this is your father speaking. You have to announce that. Then later on you give them a test and you say, who do you think you're talking to? And you have to say, I am the head of my home. You have to announce that to somebody. You've lost it already. You're really messed up. Pray for each other. You know what I told my kids? I said, I'm going to live long enough to be a problem to you. That's what Number 11, accentuate the positive. You know, we can be negative, we can be positive about it. You know, I tell a story about the 2 frogs that fell in a milk pail. And one of them was an optimist and one was a pessimist. And the pessimist frog, he just paddled around there a little bit and he said, oh, this is no good, I'm going to just drown anyway. So he sunk to the bottom and drowned. That Optimus frog, he just kept paddling and kept paddling and kept paddling. And the next morning, he was sitting on a pail of butter. You know, you gotta think positive about these things. I tell a story about the little kid who was up in a tree and the fire department had come and they put the ladder up as far as they could get and he couldn't quite, the fireman on the end of that ladder couldn't quite reach the kid. And so this priest come by and he said, Father, could you talk to this young man? I need to get him down where I can reach him. And so that priest said, listen, son. He was saying, I can't make it. He said, you gotta think positive. No, he's saying, I don't think I can make it. And the priest said, you got to think positive, son. So the little boy says, I know I can't make it. But accentuate the positive. Number 12, concentrate on being the right partner. Being the right partner for your wife. Pastor Ed, I have a few more of these at home, but I'm going to give you this one, your wallet. And I'm going to send you the page that has this that you can pass out to these guys.
That's all.
Keep that in your wallet, and every once in a while pull it out and look at it. And say, am I doing these things? Am I doing this? Now, we're going to get down to how you can fight with your spouse. And how many wants to know how to fight with your spouse and win every time? You want to know how to do that? All right. If you subscribe to my newsletter, which is only $49.99 a year, no, I'm joking. You know what? I need somebody to help me pass out some things here.